Let's face it, this is not the worst thing you've caught me doing.
Well, I guess I'll start with an apology for the late drop. It's normally Monday mornings first thing, but for reasons I don't need to necessarily get into, it's going to be dropping Monday night instead. Sorry about that. I'm now at the end of my last week of summer vacation, so kind of a sad time, I guess, so to speak. But um, yeah, I got a lot of stuff done, stuff that I wanted to get done earlier in the summer, but I never actually got around to it, like shingling a shed. So here's some advice. If you're having your roof done and the roofer offers to do the shed, just say yes. I don't know why I had it in my head that I wanted to try roofing. I figured it's a small project, not a big deal. My back was killing me, legs were killing me. Sliced my finger open. Several knuckles are missing skin just from stripping the roof down and whatnot. So needless to say, just let the professionals do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad that I did it. Just to say that I've done it. I have a lot of respect for roofers because after doing just a small shed, I wouldn't want to do that all day, every day. So, but I digress. So I've been saying I'm gonna do a movie review for a while. I actually did record one for 2 movies, but I never actually dropped the episode. I ended up getting another guest to come in. So, but I did recently see two films over the course of the week, so I figured maybe I'd give this a shot and talk about it. First one's I don't know if it's a take on reality or if it's a complete fabrication, but the movie Fly to the Moon with Channing Tatum, Scarlett Johansson, Ray Romano, Woody Harrelson. It was actually a good film, especially for any of the people that were conspiracy theories about them not making it to the moon and why there's a film or if there's a film. Just I remember back in the 90s there was this thing on TV. It was like a little documentary, and they were talking about how it was the most expensive film ever made, and like the outline of the landscape for the moon it lines up identical with a landscape in Area 51. So obviously that got all the conspiracy guys all up in arms and blah blah blah. So, but this film was actually quite good. It was like just from watching like the previews and stuff, I thought it was going to be like a jokey film, whatever. But it was actually straightforward. It was serious. Yeah, there's going to be a couple comical scenes or whatever, but they weren't forced scenes, which those scenes tend to drive me nuts. But anyways, so basically it was Apollo 11 mission. There's Cold War trying to get to the moon before the Russians. I guess it was the CIA that was worried that just in case it doesn't work, we need to make it look like it worked, is basically their attitude. So they had a film crew come in and recreate what they thought the landscape looked like, the lunar module, all that stuff, the flag. So problem was that at a certain point, I guess the CIA wasn't sure if the landing was going to take place or not, so they decided just to go with the film that they wanted anyways. So I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to wreck whatever, but it was it's a good film. It's definitely worth the watch. It definitely puts a different perspective of what could have happened. Like it's a very plausible story, especially the way how everything kind of went back then, where it was make it or fake it was the attitude. It was we have to make sure that we, the Americans, make it to the moon before the Russians do. It was a massive thing back then, and failure wasn't an option. Channing Tatum was quite good in this film, actually. I don't know him from a ton of different things. That his movies usually aren't at the top of my list. I do like him as an actor. Magic Mike was never something that I thought that I would go and see, so I just never did. I'm sure there's lots of people out there that loved it and thought it was a great film. I think there was 2 of them. But as far as Channing Tatum's character itself, he's a fictional character. He's loosely based off of, I forget what the guy's name is, but he was the one that did the Apollo 13 mission as well as the director. But he's just very loosely based. The guy was married in real life, and in this one here, he was single, and they just made it that way just for the movie, so that Scarlett Johansson's character had someone to kind of gravitate to. Scarlett Johansson's character, it was also, I believe, was a fictional character as well. Storyline itself for the film was quite good. I did really enjoy it because it was a perspective I never thought of before, and it kind of almost goes with, like I said earlier, that time period, like that era where everything was all about us. If you're American or Russian, it was the same thing either way back then. As a Canadian, we were just kind of sat in the sidelines and watched everything unfold like everybody else, all the other countries did as well. Scarlett Johansson, she portrayed the character quite well. She very much made you believe in her character, which was great because a lot of the times some actors and actresses, they're just going through the motions, and you as the audience goer, you don't really buy into what they're selling. And it happens quite often, and people don't even realize it because they're so into the story. They don't realize how unavailable the character is to them just purely based on the actor or actress's performance. And as an actor or actress becomes more famous, I do find that it's more difficult. Like, they really need to step up their game so that you forget about the other roles that they've had. That way, if you can actually buy into what they're doing, you forget about all the other films, and you're so vested in to the film that you're currently watching. And to me, that's what kind of makes or breaks the bigger actors and actresses, because it's tougher for them because they've got that large catalog of films that everyone already knows them for. So if you can get people to buy into this new character and forget about everything else, it's just a big difference between A-class actors and actresses versus the rest. Just some people struggle with it more, and just some people blame it on the script, which I can see sometimes. The scripts make it harder to sell or buy, depending on which side of the fence you sit on, I guess. So now for the comedic aspect of it, like I said, there was just a small amount of it. It was that was all Ray Romano. He's great at this. He can play serious, he can play comedic, and these are the types of roles that I like because, like I said earlier, it's not forced comedy. It's just subtle things that they say or things that they do in the background. Where that's where, to me, where true comedy is, where you're not trying to jam it down someone's throat. And Woody Harrelson, who's typically a comedic actor, was completely straight-laced. He was the CIA guy. He had to go in there for a specific thing to do, as a CIA guy does, and he never strays from it. So I also like watching his performances where he's straight-laced, because anytime an actor or actress who typically plays the same kind of thing all the time, when they finally get a chance to play something else, I find that they're fantastic. So if you're even considering watching this movie, I'd say go for it. If I had to give it a rating, I'd probably give it like a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. And trust me, that was a surprise for me, because I had seen it on there on it was either Netflix or Prime, and I kept just kind of scrolling past it. I didn't really have any interest in it, and I finally hit play on it one day, and I'm glad I did. It was actually quite good. Now, for the second film, it's going to be The Fall Guy. I remember the show from the 80s, but I don't really remember the show. But if history serves me correct, almost every film that they've redone from a TV show from the 80s, they've made into a joke. So I was really hoping that that isn't what was going to happen with this one. But like I said, I don't really have that big of a frame of reference. I remember it being an action show, and Lee Majors being in it. I couldn't tell you who the female stars were back then that were also on the show. But this one here is obviously, like I said, it's a remake of the old TV show. Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, Hannah Waddingham, and Aaron Taylor Johnson. Those are all people that I think pretty much everybody would know. I mean, Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, obviously everybody knows. Hannah Waddingham, if anyone's watched Ted Lasso, or she was in one episode of Game of Thrones. I actually didn't even recognize her at the time. My wife had to point her out. And Aaron Taylor Johnson, I know I've seen him in other things, but I'm drawing a blank on what, other than one of the Avengers movies. He was, oh God, can't think of the name of the girl. She had tons of power. She ends up going with, that doesn't matter. Anyways, she was the brother of one of the other superheroes who goes like the distance for the whole franchise. Just he ends up dying in that one film. But anyways, I'm kind of getting off track there. So in this one here, the film itself is good. It's got a good premise to it. They kind of fall off the rails a few spots where they're trying to make things funny, and like I said, they've done with so many of the other films that they've redone. They try to make it goofy, which is not how the TV show was. So I would say probably 80% of the film is action-packed, straightforward, and it's good. Just you got to put up with some stupid scenes, which I guess nowadays, like you have movies like Deadpool where it's all action-packed and every 3 seconds is something stupid happening, but people come to accept Deadpool for it being Deadpool, right? So, but in this one here, I think it would have been a lot better if they just stuck with just the film. They had top-notch actors in it, so it didn't have to be funny. It was stupid little add-ons that were completely unnecessary to the film. But the actual film itself was, like, the premise of it was, as in the name, Fall Guy. They need a Fall Guy for something that happens in the film. So again, I don't want to spoil it. It's a really new film. So the action sequences, I mean, when it gets to the end, they talk about how the actual stunt guys, like how integral they are to the whole movie scene and how important they are, and how they wouldn't be able to get the stuff that they've been getting if it wasn't for them. Because no matter how good CGI is, it's always going to look better if it's real. So that's where they insert the stunt guys, which in this one here, he's the Fall Guy. So Ryan Gosling is the stunt double for Aaron Taylor Johnson. Aaron Taylor Johnson is supposed to be a big action superstar. So they actually do look similar. Like they don't in real life, but they do look similar enough in this one just because they have the same hairdo, they dress the same, which is how they do it with all stunt doubles, I guess. And Emily Blunt she starts out at the beginning of the film as, actually I can't even remember what her title was. I think she was in charge of cameras, maybe. She was a camera operator. And by halfway through the film, she had been bumped up to director. I'm not sure that's how fast it goes, but there's also a bit of a time gap in the center, and you'll understand when you watch it. So it's like a year and a half jump. So I guess a lot could have happened to her with her career during that time period, which obviously it did. And you'll understand a little bit more why. And again, I don't want to give too much away because you know how it is. It end up just wrecking the movie. So So if I was to rate this movie here, I would definitely give this in more of a 8.5. I might go a little bit higher, but if it wasn't for, like I said, the extra stupid little stuff. But it's a great film. It's if you want to just sit down on the couch and watch it once it comes out onto a streaming thing, it's definitely worth your time. Or go and see it in the movie theater. It is a good film. I always talk about, like, with my friends and stuff, just about pop culture things, and a movie that I was surprised that I just found out recently that a lot of people haven't seen was Ready Player One. If you want to talk about a pop culture movie, the references from like the 80s and 90s with all the different things in it, but if it's either music or kids films or TV shows, it's all in there. Even the hairstyles from back in the day. That one there, I've seen that movie probably 10, 15 times. I love that film. It's like the main character's got his car is the DeLorean from Back to the Future, but it's got the little red light going back and forth in the grill from Knight Rider. So it's just small things like that. There's scenes where you can see RoboCop walking in the background. You can see Batman. There's, like I said, it's got everything pop culture wise from like the movie industry and the music industry that they talk about throughout the entire film. And the whole thing is basically a video game that everyone's playing. I mean, if you haven't seen it, obviously what I'm saying is not going to make a ton of sense until you start watching it, but essentially people are wearing VR glasses or goggles, and they've got these full suits and omnidirectional treadmills. So it's almost like they're actually in this place that's called the Oasis, where it's an online that it seems like everybody's plugged into. Like there's a section where they go by, quote unquote, an apartment building, but it's trailers that are stacked on top of each other, and everyone's doing the same thing as they're going by the windows. You can see people playing tennis, a shooting game, or singing or dancing on a stripper pole. There's a ton of the things, and there you can go and be whatever you want once you get into the Oasis. So that movie there, I would give that one a 9. So there's 3 films you can go and check out. That one to me is definitely the best one of the 3, and it's an older film now. I can't remember when it came out, but it's got to be 3, 4, 5 years by now. COVID's really screwed me up for timelines, so I could be way off on that even. So, but yeah, it's worth checking it out. It's you'll recognize the people that are in it. I can't think off the top of my head who the actors actually are, but it's definitely a good one. Well, I think that's where I'm gonna end it for this week. Come up with something new for next week. I'll probably be another guest. So, yeah, I guess that's it. I guess I'll talk to everybody next time.